Welcome back, crew. It's been a minute, but I wanted to celebrate our 2,000 subscriber with a fun video. And today we are going to be jumping into how do I identify the various tabletop mechanical styles? And going into finding which tabletop RPG style may be the best for you. Because a lot of times I see the conversation usually just ranging for the system's crunchy or the system's light, without really going into what that means. Because as you can see in this system, there's a very vast difference between even systems that most people would call light. In between some of these categories. So we're going to go through this starting with the very light systems, going up to some of the more crunchy simulation style. And let's kick it off with the one pagers. So this is like I'm not sure if it's a new trend, but I'll say I started noticing it about 4 or 5 years ago. It's like so think lasers and feelings that way. Funny heist. A lot of these one pagers that are getting a lot of popularity. They basically they're exactly as they sound. The whole rules of the system can fit on one page. They're designed to be very light for the game master, very more kind of narrative, almost improvisational flow and very easy for the players to learn because everything you need to learn is on one page. That's all you have to do. Read that one page, and you are good to go. And begin kind of like begin describing your adventures, telling your story on that side. And I'll be honest, I've not played a one pager before. It's on my list. Lasers and feelings. I keep going the wrong way. Lasers and feelings would be the one I play when I do get a chance. I love John Harper, Blades of the Dark author, and he's the one that made this one. So that's definitely going to be one that I get a chance to check out when I do. But I feel like this would be great for players who love that improvisational feel, game masters who don't have a lot of prep, or players that don't like to learn a lot of rules. I mean, if you want to play a tabletop RPG, one page is like the least amount of rules you can learn, and it's still called a TTRPG versus pure improv. So this is a great way to get into the system. I feel and like I said, I haven't tried it myself, but from what I've heard, read it to some other players who have played these one pagers, it's a great way to get new people into the system or into tabletop RPGs because there's not too much to learn. There's not many mechanics that are going to kind of overwhelm them on this side. It's just kind of getting them into the feel of the RP and kind of the back and forth between the storyteller, game master, whatever you call them, and the players. So definitely stay tuned. We're going to jump into that pretty soon on the channel because I want to see how those play. They're what I don't do too much prep for. So that's kind of that first category. One pagers, very light systems. Moving into the next, all these are more the narrative systems. These are there's mechanics. There's definitely like a good mechanical base to them, but they're not usually overly complex. They're usually more fiction first. Like a big one, Mask on this side is a good one to look at because it's definitely gives you a lot of tools within the system. But a lot of the tools allow you to kind of step back and focus on the narrative. So these, the Mass game, a lot of the powered by the apocalypse style games. Uh, from what I've heard, Fate as well kind of fits into this category. These are going to be great for people. A lot of the same people in that category above, but willing to do a little bit more diving into the mechanics, diving into the resources. Because these ones are usually pretty not dense books, but definitely a good amount within them. They give you a lot of tools to bring these stories to the table, and a lot of times these narrative systems I found usually unless they're like Fate, which is more of a generalist system, are usually like Mask, where they kind of fit into a specific fantasy or dungeon world, or any of those other, if or Avatar: The Last Airbender, which we played on this channel. They usually have that specific fantasy, that specific style of story that they're trying to tell. And a lot of times they'll come up playbook to support that style of story. One of the things that could be either great for you or bad for you, depending on how you look at it. If you're really looking to tell a story about young heroes and kind of the struggles they come up with and balancing their powers and superhero duties, Mass fits really well. If you're trying to tell a more Justice League style superhero story, Mask may let you down there. Mask will let you down there, especially if you don't want to play young heroes. So that's one of the things they look for with this kind of a more narrative grouping, I would say, is if you look to try to match the narrative of whatever the game is with the story you are trying to tell. If you match those up, they will work perfectly for you. But some have found it a little bit restrictive if you're looking for more of an open-ended game. So definitely things to keep in mind on that side. So the next big category is one of my favorites, and one that I'm glad to see a little bit of a resurgence. The old school Renaissance games. I love these. These are great for short campaigns, one shots, grittier campaigns. And shout outs to the one I've got there, Karen. That's one of my favorites on that side. These are going to be more gritty games. These are going to be the games where a lot of the other ones, in any of the categories, both behind and forward, could be a little bit more concerned with kind of telling the story, keeping your players alive, or keeping your players' characters alive, and not being too gruesome or too much of a meat churner with the characters. The OSRs, the OSR games are a lot more. Uh, may not live. Each of the games I've run, usually at least one to two to the whole party, have died eventually. These are big games where they're tough threats, where you have to just think outside of your character sheet a little bit. These are ones where it can be a lot more creative with what you do with the resources that you have at hand, because you have to be very cautious about engaging in combat. You have to be very cautious of the traps and natural hazards of the world, and it can just be a good time to kind of get that through. And these ones are going to be games like Karen, End of the Odd, Morkborg. There's a ton of them. I feel like they're going through a little bit of a renaissance now as well. With so there's a lot of these new titles coming through. The great thing with these, and I kind of like debated between putting them before or after narrative games. Because sometimes they can be less complex in narrative games. Sometimes there may be a lot more built into them. They can be more complex, but overall, they're usually fairly contained. If you're used to 5e or especially Pathfinder, there are going to be a lot less rules that you need to learn. Your character sheet could usually fit on at least one full page, or at the very least, or at least very least a half page to less. I usually have like 3 to 4 stats and things to worry about. It's very easy, very quick to learn, but you can kind of go through and tell these stories and have humans that are or heroes that are more human. They're not going to be like the superheroes you can get with D&D and Pathfinder, or the crazy stuff you could do with mutants and Mastermind either. These are going to be kind of more down to earth heroes that could pretty easily die or meet their end on the adventure. This is one of my favorite categories, and that's a little bit about me too. I think if you've watched my channel, you've seen a lot of the different games we reviewed. You can probably tell which categories are my favorites. But I will say the next three, the OSR, the next two, are probably the ones I spend the most time in. But I do kind of enjoy branching out of that too. So, with that, we're going to go into the next big one. We're going into the balanced category, is what I call it. I picked Blades of the Dark, and this one could be a little controversial. This one, I do feel like it fits that balanced category, and I wish I had a better name for balance. If you have one in the comments, shout it out. But this was just kind of the first thing that came to mind because it's one of those ones that kind of walks the line between the crunch and the narrative. It kind of fitted them together. So Blades of the Dark is a great one for this one. 13th Age is also a really good one on this side as well to kind of throw in that category. I'd also put the Fantasy Age system in there as well. The ones that are kind of just leaner than D&D and Pathfinder, but still more complex than like the PBTA games and OSRs. They give you a lot of tools that you could work with, but still kind of focus on the narrative side. These ones this is what a category I didn't really know of until I started this channel. It has become one of my favorites. It's great for game masters because you don't have to do as much prep as you do with some of the tactical games, but you can still go through and just have like a riff with your players, tell these amazing stories, and there's still like some mechanical depth and progression that will keep players invested for a longer term campaign. Which I could sometimes say, and this is a debatable topic, but in my opinion, some of the OSRs or even the narrative games really don't have too much progression. That can sometimes be a little bit harder for a long-term campaign. The balance category, from what I've seen between Blades, 13th Age, Fantasy Age, they usually do give you some good room to progress. So that's a great one. This is one I'd encourage players and game masters, especially, to check out. I think, again, especially if you GM'd a long time for 5e, Pathfinder, and you've kind of wanted to focus on the story side some more, but still keep some of the mechanical progression. These ones can be a great one to kind of bridge that gap and still keep everything progressing, but still give you that narrative feel that you're looking for. So definitely check out the balance category and shout out a better name in the comments if you have one. The next big one, this is another one that I play it a lot. This is what I like to call the tactical game. So shout outs to Pathfinder and shout outs to our Pandemonium campaign. So linked out. Check that one out if you haven't. But this is going to be games where there are more, uh, lots of combat options, thicker rules because a lot of the rules matter when it comes to how you cast your spells, how attacks work, how everything goes. Usually, they're going to recommend utilizing a grid. It's not required, but usually you get the best play if you use a grid for these ones. Where a lot of times with the balance systems, like 13 to 8, actually says you don't need a grid. And OSRs and narrative systems, you can get away without using a grid. Tactical is where that grid comes into play as more of a must, we'll say. Uh, I love these ones. These ones are usually when I run a full campaign, and when I say full campaign, it's gonna be like 20, 30 plus sessions. These are the ones I gravitate towards because it just gives you so much character room for character progression. There's so many cool different builds that players can do. That sometimes it can be lacking in some of the other groups that we mentioned. Not so much in balance, but definitely kind of on the other side of that is you can't really get those diverse builds, and especially with Pathfinder, you can get so many different things and even D&D 5e. I know like a lot of people may not be their favorite, but it fits into this tactical category, even though there's not as many options as Pathfinder. There's still a lot of cool things you can do to build and differentiate yourself and get into that tactical combat and more of the kind of have to worry about positioning, where you place your spells, how you do your attacks, how you manage your HP and resources. And that's why I gave it a tactical name because it's a lot of things that go along with that you have to build towards and kind of make sure you're managing as you play. So this is one of my favorites. We're going into kind of the last big category for the big RPG mechanical styles. This is one I played a bit of. It's not my favorite. I still want to kind of try some more diving into it, and I picked kind of the biggest representation for it, GURPS. This is going to be what I call the simulationist game. So this is where they're going to really kind of they're going to have rules for pretty much everything. It's going to you're going to be able to if you had a particular kind of moment you wanted to play out, have mechanics for it, they're going to have it. They're going to be, from what I've seen, they try to set themselves up more to kind of reflect the world a bit more than other, like the tacticals and especially the balance or the OSRs will do. So for these ones, Thinkers hero system. So we did champions from the hero system. That would fit in the simulationist category. This is what I want to do more of. GURPS one day, like if I ever have like a couple weeks off from work and I feel like diving into it, and I know for some, GURPS is probably overblown as mechanically complex it is. But it's definitely what I want to try when I have that more free time. And just really kind of dive a little bit more into simulationist because I've seen a little bit of GURPS. I've played a offshoot of it once, but it's not one I've really dived into outside the hero system, which I kind of got to kind of flex out a little bit. Uh, yeah, so these are kind of just a quick run through of the. Actually, before I do that, the players that are looking for kind of that the world, the mechanics deflect kind of more, not the real world, but they have a more realistic feel, have more things that are built into the system and not GM Fiat. This is where you'll find the kind of the game. The simulation style will be perfect for that. They also have like crazy things you can build. I built a PC once with utilizing a system that borrowed a lot from GURPS. It was a homebrew system from one of my GMs. And it's crazy the kind of things you can build. And you can really specialize yourself. There's so many different skills and things and options to invest in. And for people that enjoy building a character, you'll love it. Uh, but for those who don't like to have to look up the rules a ton, it can be a little bit of a learning curve. And I love rules myself. That's why I love to kind of fit in the tactical game. Uh, but even with some like the GURPS and hero system, when from my limited experience with it, I'm like, this is a lot to retain even for me. But each style has its own person that kind of gravitates towards them. You all saw from mine, kind of the OSR, balanced and tactical are really where I kind of find my niche. But it's kind of one of those things. So I wanted to do this video because I feel like there's a lot of room for players to kind of find different RPGs out there with kind of this vast plethora of RPGs being released so often. They get kind of hard to find where the RPG style that you like fits into. And I think these five categories go from the very light with the one pagers to the narratives with the PBTAs to the OSRs with Cairn, Into the Odd, Mork Borg, to the balanced with 13th Age, Blades of the Dark. tactical with Pathfinder and D&D, and then finally the Simulationist with GURPS and the hero system. I think if you kind of utilize those, you can really have a good chance of kind of figuring out what style you like, what styles you don't like, and can kind of use that as a way to filter out and find the games that are best for you. But yeah, that's kind of a quick video. Just major shout out to the crew for getting us over that 2,000 hump. I'm truly grateful for you all supporting the channel. Also, while it is super delayed, we are still going to be doing some videos with Aegon. We're vacation, and then honestly, Final Fantasy VII got away from me with February, so I did not get as much stuff done as I'd like. But we're going to be doing some videos with Aegon. Check that out this weekend, and also our March game of the month is going to be Fabula Ultima. Which is kind of fits. It was voted for by our patrons as well as our YouTube channel. That side, since we had a little bit of four-way tie with the patrons, which is going to be kind of a fun one, especially I've been in a little bit of Final Fantasy mood with 7 coming out. So stay tuned. We're going to kind of do them both at the same time, as long as my time permits. So check that out. Shout in the comments some of your favorite TTRPG styles, or if you think I may have forgotten the category or gotten the category wrong. I'd love to hear from you guys. But thanks for your time, and till next time.